Mark Andrews, how are you, champion?
Good, thanks, mate. Yourself?
I'm very good. We're hurtling into Christmas, so what are we, 8 days away? 7 days?
Mate, I haven't even thought about. I don't want to think about it.
Mate, before we start, just want to give a shout out to a few people that have really got on board and trying to support the podcast and what we're trying to do and bring awareness to what policing's really like. And we're going to talk about our experiences, policing stories, our experience with PTSD. A couple of episodes that we've done really sort of went into a few stories that we've had in the police. And for those that are just listening for the first time, you've had 24 years.
Yeah, that's right.
And I served 8 years in the New South Wales Police. So today we're going to move on to something that we need to bring a lot of more awareness to, and that is PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder. A lot of momentum gathering for post-traumatic stress injury, so PTSI. Mate, I know we've been friends for over 20 years.
Yes.
And I'm only just learning of a lot of the battles that you've been going through. The more episodes that we've done and the more the awareness we're bringing, the people reaching out to us with similar stories from all over the country. So today we're going to talk about your battle with PTSD.
Yep, happy to do that.
So before we speak about that, if anyone's watching or listening and you've had your own battles with PTSD, please listen or watch this with a support person. And if it does trigger anything urgent, please contact Lifeline, which is 13 11 14. Mark, when did you first realise that being a police officer affected you in a way that something's not right here? I need help.
I reckon it was probably about 2 years into the job. I'd been to a fatality whilst on night shift. Didn't sleep the next day. Then that afternoon, went to a mate's place. They were having a party. Got on the drink. I was still on night shift.
Where were you working this time?
I was working at Blacktown.
Yep.
Party was in Penrith. Got on the drink pretty heavily, knowing I still had to work that night. But I can reflect back now and think, well, it was just, again, coping mechanism, which was inherent in the police then at that stage. Put aside your emotion, just drink it. And to be honest, I didn't feel there'd be any repercussions turning up to work being drunk because it was part of the culture then. So that was pretty bad that I was even considering going to work intoxicated and knowing that it'd probably be fine.
It's more encouraged than...
Yeah, because that was the way we dealt with incidences. So I remember I went to work. I drove, so straight away I've done the wrong thing. Turned up to work intoxicated, and I don't know what my state of mind was then, but I know I was still upset from the night before from the fatality. I know I went to my locker, and at those days we kept our firearms in the locker. We didn't have a gun safe or nothing like that. You just kept it in your holster, which was in your locker. I got my gun, walked into the sergeant's office, told everyone to go get fucked, I'm out of here, and just drove off, took off with my firearm. Back then there was no mobile phones, so they had no way of ringing me or anything like that. I ended up at a mate's place at Kings Langley or Kings Park, Gabby's, and crashed in there, and he obviously took the gun off me, put me into bed, rung up obviously the station. They came and got the gun, stayed at his place and slept it off, woke up the next morning, had a chat with him as a mate, and then went home. No phone call from work, nothing like that, nothing was said. Lobbed up at work that night for the next shift. Got a kick up the arse from the sergeant, and my punishment was go and work in the station that night. answering phones, and that was pretty much all that was done from me turning up the night before, heavily intoxicated, taking my firearm, making some threats and disappearing on them. No support, nothing was offered to me, just go and serve your time working in the station tonight and don't do it again.
Do you remember when you said I went out on the drink and using alcohol? Was that to suppress what you were going through, you were trying to process from that fatal?
Yeah, I do now.
Yeah.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
So I didn't sleep that day. I do remember that. And I went to my mate's party, and not those schoolmates at that time, so I was still socialising with my schoolmates. And yeah, I was intent on getting drunk, and knowing full well I had to go to work that night. I wasn't fazed by that fact. And now, with hindsight and having gone through a lot of therapy and that, I can see that as being reckless behaviour. And grabbing my gun and making...
Do you remember what caused that? You said,
mate, I just think it was
I'm
the
out,
pain.
fuck
Like,
off, I'm out of here.
yeah, mate, I just think I wanted to... I think then I was experiencing a lot of pain.
Yeah.
And I think when you're experiencing a lot of pain, alcohol's the worst thing you can do, because it then magnifies your thoughts and not the good thoughts, and more the negative thoughts. And but yeah, just I think it was more or less, I think that was a call for help doing that.
Yeah.
But never got it. And then I pretty much, would have been 1990. It wasn't until 1999, 98 that I was diagnosed with PTSD, and that's when I first started seeing a counsellor.
Yeah, so what I wanted to move on to then was, when was the point where you thought, I need professional help?
That was probably 1998.
And do you remember an event that caused that, or was
that was the fatality at Braidwood.
Yeah.
As I said, that was in, I think, the second podcast we did that I went through
for
that.
anyone listening, it's episode 2. We go into depth about that fatality in Braidwood.
Mate, just the whole non-coping with that one. So many issues came up from that one. That's when I sought help. But before that, there was none. I'd even gone through stabbed with a used syringe. Had to go through the whole process of having blood tests and all that done. Because back then there was a big fear of AIDS and things like that. And again, there was just no support network. I didn't even think at that point that I should go and get counselling about how it's affected me and things like that.
When was the syringe episode?
That would have been 90, 91 as well.
Okay.
And my girlfriend at the time, it affected us in a big way because of that fear of AIDS. So sexually, we had to be careful.
Yep.
My drinking just got heavier and heavier. And as I said, I joined at a very young age where I wanted to be accepted, and the drinking mentality was part of being accepted.
Yes.
As a coping mechanism, but also as being part of the group. And I definitely got caught up in that environment. Yeah, big time. And the more you drank and did stupid things, the more your ego grew, and you were more accepted.
Did you feel you could go and talk to someone?
No.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to cut you off short there, but there was you couldn't.
Yeah.
You couldn't show that you were weak. There was no way I could go up to the senior sergeant or a sergeant and start expressing how I was feeling. They'd just tell me, grow up, harden up, get the F back out there, do your job.
Yes.
And that's obviously the way they were conditioned through their career. There was just no support. There was no way you would even contemplate going to talk to someone about how you were feeling.
Yeah.
There wasn't even any person that you could even think that you could go and talk to.
Yeah. It's what you just said then. We do love how we were loved, meaning how we enter relationships as adults is how we were loved as children. And similar with, that's how they were conditioned as
Yep.
through constable, senior constables into a sergeant's role, senior role. Back in that day,
Yep.
they then just pass on that conditioning and so on and so on, and so it becomes a culture where
Yeah.
that's just what happens.
It's almost genetic. It's just like
Yeah.
passed on to one
Genetic
generation
to
to
that
the next
culture.
generation. It is. And that was a culture. There was just, as I said, like our way of dealing with an incident was go get a carton of beer or whatever it is, or go down to the local and everyone just drink until you're absolutely blind drunk. And
Yeah.
that was just to make the thought process behind was that drink until you forget.
Yeah.
Short term, yeah, it's great, but long term, as I said, I'm battling with a trauma at the moment, which was triggered from an incident back in 1989. And it got re-triggered 2 years ago. Something I hadn't thought about, but it was just sitting in the back of my mind because I didn't deal with it at the time. I just got myself drunk, forgot about it at the time, and 30 years later was reminded of it.
Yeah.
So
Can you share, if you're okay to, from when you started to receive the professional counselling, what help you've sought, institutions you've been to?
yeah, I started seeing initially, obviously I went first port of calls, go see your GP. They'll then give you a referral to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I was referred to both. The psychiatrist I went to, I've been seeing ever since. So he knows my full history. I've had a few different psychologists, but a lot of times I've only changed psychologists mainly because I don't like building up a trust with someone and then just going to find another one or something like that. So it takes a little bit of a time to build up a trust with someone so then you can actually be open and honest and fully bring out your whole emotions and know that they are actually listening to you. So once you get established that connection, that's when you're going to get the best results. And I've had very few psychologists because I want to build that connection before I'll then fully open up.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of background work and trying to get to know them as much as they're trying to get to know you, just to build that confidence to be able to. And the reason I've probably had 3 psychologists in my time. They've all been female psychologists. My psychiatrist is male, but the female psychologists, the first 2, the only reason I stopped seeing them was because of them being pregnant and obviously having to leave. But they would then refer me and do a handover to the next one of a person they knew. So I've sort of been able to keep my story flowing. And the psychologist I'm seeing currently, I've been seeing her for 6 years, maybe 7 years. So she knows I don't have to go in there and go through everything again. It's just sort of like, let's pick up what's going on now, and they know what's been going on. So it's a lot easier in terms of me healing and getting the treatment that I need, that they know my actual background.
Yeah.
Because it's very, very, and that's the thing, it's the perseverance at the start because they don't know what's been going on. You've got to build that trust with them. And then before you can actually fully open up, you need that trust that you know that they're going to be doing the right thing and they're actually hearing you.
Yes.
That's the biggest thing. You can tell if they're not hearing you because their responses, it's just, you think, well, that doesn't relate to me at all. But the ones, I've been fortunate, the ones that have been very attentive, and that's why I've just stuck with them.
Yeah.
And even with my psychiatrist and that, like I've had opportunities where I could have gone to other hospitals and stuff like that for treatment, but he said that you would have to see another psychiatrist. And I said, look, I just don't want to go through my whole story again. I don't. And that's the thing which we can speak about when you do all these independent medical assessments. It's all good that you go and do these, but you've got to talk about stuff that you've spoken about that many times.
Yes.
And each time you've got to relive it, you're remembering it.
Yes.
And you are going back through the whole trauma process again. And again, you're left with no support when you walk out of there. And that's why I've tried staying solid with my support network.
Yes.
So I don't have to keep going back over everything.
Do you feel sometimes the issue can be also trying to explain the exact work that police do or ambulance officers do or fireys do, trying to explain parts of the job, like what that means as well as why that triggered you or why that was a trauma?
Yeah, that's the thing. If you're looking for a specialist in that, you got to look for ones that actually are specialists in PTSD.
Yep.
Ones that will just do a bit of everything. They don't have a full grasp of what they will understand it textbook wise, but they don't have a full. They need to listen to real life stories, to get an idea of actually what emergency personnel, defence personnel, or anyone that's suffered PTSD, what is behind and the background of what's actually caused it. And until they know all those, the actual inherent environment that you've come from, they can't help you because it's not so much just the actual incident you attend to, it's the culture that you're brought up in as well.
Yes. With going back to psychologists, psychiatrists, how many have you seen? Has it been 5 or 6 in the last 30 years?
Mate, over that period, geez. When you put in the fact that there's been instances where I've been taken to hospital on a schedule, I've had to speak to psychiatrists there, my own psychiatrist or the independent psychiatrist, the psychologist, the psychiatrist I've had to speak to in hospitals when I've had admissions and that. When you add it all up, mate, 20, I suppose.
Yeah.
And each person, you've then got to go through the whole process. That's why the ones that I've got stable for my support network when I'm out and about functioning in society, I've tried to keep them constant.
That's what I wanted to share with everyone is just let's take a step back and that big picture across the last 30 years. Yeah, so there's over 20 different specialists.
Easily, yeah.
That you've had to come in contact with, tell your story, relive the traumas every time, explain what police do, just explain your history. That is taxing, and that there's triggers in all of that. So just wanted to give people an overview of, what is happening out there. With those, how many times have you been scheduled and what institutions have you spent time in?
I've been taken to Nepean Hospital a dozen times, I suppose, on schedule because of concerns of safety. And I've spent probably a dozen inpatient stays out at St John of God Hospital out at Richmond. Prince of Wales Hospital, I was scheduled there once. Yeah, they're pretty much the institutions that I've been in. St John of God Hospital, did an admission earlier this year, did a lengthy admission last year. I've been out of the police now for 8 years, and since I've been out, I think every year I've done 1 or 2 admissions per year with a relapse or something like that. So, at the moment I'm battling, again, a re-trigger and having absolutely ridiculous amount of stress created by the insurance company. Again, I don't understand why they want people with mental illness to, part of that is the anxiety which is caused by your illness, yet they seem to want to create more anxiety and more stress with the way they handle the claim. Instead of helping you get the help you're seeking, they seem to want to muck around with it until it pushes people to doing something silly. Whether that's what they want, I don't know. I can't imagine someone being that sick that they would want that from someone. But there's no system in place where they try and help you while they sort through all the paperwork crap. But there seems to be so much importance on the paperwork crap before they actually fix you. And then the fact is, by the time they get through all that paperwork crap, you've regressed to an even worse point. And a lot of people have regressed to a point of no return. And, putting it bluntly, they've committed suicide. And that is not a right system. It's wrong that they think people with mental illness are stupid. And they treat you that way too. They treat you like you're an idiot. And as I said, the way they think that you've got all the time in the world while they take all the time in the world, it's just feeding into that anxiety. Like when you're sitting at home with nothing to do and all you're worried about, are they going to allow me to go into hospital? Are they going to pay for me to go and see a doctor? It just feeds into that anxiety. It just feeds into that anxiety even more. It's almost like a game to them. And it just takes away that feeling. You don't feel important. You just feel they don't care, so why should you care?
Yeah, we were talking before about to them, there's no face to the file.
There isn't, mate.
There's just words and paragraphs in a file,
Yep.
one after the other. There's no connection between the insurance company or the assessor and, the person who is battling and suffering and going through what they are. So there's no empathy, or there's no there's no human connection to that file. So it's easy for them to just treat it as such.
Mate, there isn't. As I said, you're just a piece of paper on their desk.
Yeah.
With a name and a number on it. I had an incident when I was first discharged. I also was medically discharged for a physical injury where I badly broke and dislocated my ankle. Snapped both medial and lateral ligaments as well, so I had about 10 or so operations on that.
How did you do that?
Doing the OSG course.
Okay.
Bush navigation, taking a shortcut, running through the bush. Don't know if it was a hole or a rock, but just completely snapped my ankle.
Jesus.
And then that led to a lot of operations. And with my PTSD and my self-care being exercise, I always found that when I had surgery and was placed into a boot and being immobilised for 6 weeks, I was unable to do my self-care, and that's when I would really go into a deep phase of depression and things like that.
Yeah.
Just after being medically discharged from the police, I'd had surgery and found myself in one of those episodes of where I was not coping. I was stuck at home. I actually couldn't weight bear on my foot for 6 weeks, and then I had to do only partial weight bearing for another 6 weeks. That's 3 months of doing nothing, exercising.
Yeah.
I was getting into a really bad state. My doctors and that referred me to go to the hospital and be out in the hospital while I was in the cast, so I could be monitored and my health could be, so I wasn't going to do anything silly, because I was getting into that depressed state and starting to think, self-harm and suicidal thoughts. I contacted the insurance company and they said, yeah, we'll get onto it. We've got 28 days to review it. I needed the treatment straight away. Like, I was at that point in my life where I didn't have many days before I was contemplating suicide. Insurance company, the arrogance of them was that, well, we've got 28 days. If we need to take 28 days, we'll take 28 days. And I thought, well, that's unacceptable. Like, in 28 days' time, I'll be dead. So I ended up jumping on a train, crutches and all. I went to the front door, secure door. You had to buzz to get in. I was on crutches, struggling to, get myself set to press the buzzer. Fortunately, at the time, a security guard walks past, sees me struggling, and opens the door for me and lets me in. So I'm thinking, your beauty, I'm in.
Yep.
Don't have to explain what I'm there for, who I'm there for, and probably just be told, look, they're unavailable. Went to the front counter, demanded to see the case manager. She came out, saw me, obviously saw how distressed I was. And this is the one that just 24 hours had told me they'll take 28 days to review my claim.
Yeah.
After I'd already had all treatment, like, it wasn't like they had to review whether I had PTSD or not. They knew I had PTSD. They just wanted to take 28 days to see whether I should go to hospital or not. She said, take a seat, went and sat in a lounge in the waiting room. She then must have gone around the office and picked the 4 biggest blokes to come out as a security entourage. They all stood around me and said, what do you want? And I said, well, look, now you've got the pile of paper on your desk, you've now got a face to it. So I said, you're telling me that I've got 28 days. I'm telling you I don't have many days left. I said, so when something goes to shit, you can remember this face. And then I walked out of there and they said, where are you going now? And I said, well, to be honest, why do you give a fuck? And I walked out of there, turned my phone off.
And they just allowed you to leave?
They just allowed me to leave. They said, where are you going? I said, well, probably go up to City Circle and jump in front of a train. What do you care? I walked out of there, a mess, crying. I went back home, got back home, and they'd contacted my wife, Diane, who was there waiting for me. She said, what's going on? And you need to turn your phone on. There's people trying to contact you. Turned my phone on, lo and behold, and surprise, surprise, I had a bed in hospital the next day. But it took me to actually go down there and show them I wasn't just a piece of paper on a desk, and they had it had to be physically shown to them that I wasn't kidding around, that I was desperate for help.
Yeah.
Like I'm telling them, my doctors are telling them he needs to go to hospital. You can't wait if you need to go to hospital now, like you're not going to say to a heart attack victim, I will wait 28 days for a bed.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, like I'm not saying it's as serious as a heart attack, but when someone's at the edge of thinking of self-harm or suicide and they're saying, no, let's think about this for 28 days.
Yeah,
like,
because we can.
And they're playing a game of life and death.
Yeah.
And that's the sad thing is because people are killing themselves purely because they're waiting on insurance companies to do what, they've got 28 days, guaranteed that that's in the legislation, but it's not as simple as that. Like it's not 28 days to put someone in hospital to get help. You're talking about someone's life.
Yeah.
And they're not holiday. I don't know if anyone's been in a hospital, but it's not a theme park. It's not a holiday. It's not a luxurious resort. It's quite depressing just being there, and it's humiliating. Like to have your family and friends come out and see you, and that's only the ones that you want to know that you're out there, because it's humiliating that you've even been in hospital. Because it's without sugarcoating, it's a psychiatric hospital. It is humiliating, and then for your own children to come out and visit you while you're in hospital as a patient under mental health, it's like, well, I was embarrassed, and I still get embarrassed by it.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what for you personally, why the humiliation?
I guess it all comes back to that social stigma of mental health.
Yeah.
Even though I've got it, there's still that shame of having it because of the way it's portrayed in society as being a weakness. I just didn't like the idea of my kids seeing their dad in that sort of environment. I've accepted it now. My kids are very, very, very supportive of me now with it. It still doesn't take away the guilt that I have.
Have you had anyone openly criticise you or ridicule you or back up what you've got going on in your mind, or but hasn't been supportive to you? Because where I'm going with it is, I've found that everyone I've actually been trying to hide stuff from, once I've actually voiced it and been vulnerable and open and raw, and I've told them this is what's happening, they've been very supportive. Have you found that too?
Yeah, mate, I think those fears haven't been validated.
Yeah.
You're surprised when people actually do know the full extent of what you've gone through. They are quite supportive, but it's hard to know who to talk to begin with.
Yes.
You are very guarded and reserved about who or what you say, and it takes a lot of trust building before you can open up.
Yeah.
And it is hard. It's a silent killer.
Yeah.
Like the stereotype for people that think of depression, they think of the person laying in a dark room on the floor in the fetal position, sucking their thumb. And that's another thing with the insurance companies. Like that's what they make you want to feel you've got to do. You're not allowed to go down the street and buy a coffee or something like that. You're not made to be able to go down and talk to a friend in a social setting because, hey, you're out in the society. You can't have anything wrong with you.
Yeah.
How dare you crack a smile? If you're smiling, you must be happy.
Yeah.
And I found all that out when I had surveillance put on me and stuff like that, and yet all the surveillance was fake and false, and it was all proven to be, yet they just dismissed it and didn't worry about it in making their decisions or anything like that. So, but that's what they make you want to. They make you isolate even more.
Yeah.
Because you feel guilty for just wanting to be out in society and just trying to be. And my doctor and my psychiatrist, my psychologist, they're all saying, go play golf, Mark. Go to the beach, Mark. And I'll be saying, yeah, but if
Go
someone
train.
Yeah, and then you'd be thinking, well, what if I get seen? And they said, so what? I'm telling you, that's what you need to do to get better.
Yeah.
You can't keep yourself locked away of fear of people thinking. If I was walking around when I had and that was my perfect masking. When I did have my surgeries and that, I could walk around on my crutches and that. And then if I looked down and sad and that, people would just assume, oh, you just had surgery. But that's acceptable. But if I walked around down sad and everyone would just think I'm being a snob or something like that, they wouldn't attribute mental health or anything like that. So a physical injury and a psychological injury is still viewed very separately.
Yeah, and I can back that up from, our time at Penrith together. if you wouldn't come to an event, or whether you're a bit distant, and you'd always put it down to like, oh, it's my ankle.
Yeah.
But now you've been open and more vulnerable about, yes, you got some physical injuries, but the main issue was going on inside in your head.
Massively. And a lot of time I could have returned to work a lot quicker if it was just a physical injury.
Yeah.
But because the physical injury would then make my PTSD so much worse, and I'd go into that bouts of depression, that would prolong my time away from work.
Yeah.
And 100%, I wouldn't go to these dudes. Yeah, I had my foot. I could have, if it was only physically, I could still go and sit on a bar stool or sit on a chair and still partake in the social activities. But it was the other side that was being hidden.
Yeah.
That prevented me from doing that.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for a probationary constable, young constable, ambos, police, anyone that's military, fireys, if they're sitting there really struggling with stuff and they feel like they're going to be less of a man, or they're going to be weak to speak up, do you have any advice for them after what you've been through?
Yeah, it was straight away, and it's even not even so much less of a man, or even women, like don't feel ashamed, and don't feel. I know a lot of women still get bullied in that within the workforces, and that if they display a weakness, it's just because you're female and that,
100%,
which is a load of crap.
Yeah.
It's not because they're just female and that; it's because they've experienced something that's traumatic. And that's the same with men and stuff like now. Now, with hindsight, I look back when I joined and I had the things. I should have been stronger within myself. If you want to be a real man, then be strong about the fact that you've got something wrong with you and you seek help about it. It's a weakness not owning up to something that's hurting you. And the only thing I can say to the ones that are joining, and that if you identify the littlest change in your behaviour because of something that you think you may have seen, or doesn't matter, like everyone copes with things differently. So what you're feeling is different to what I'm feeling, and what you're feeling is different to what I feel. You can't gauge on a certain incident how everyone's going to feel about it. Everyone's got their own personal intake, or personal feelings in regards to it. Everyone's going to cope differently, but you got to look after yourself individually, because you're not going to get the support from the department. You're not going to get the support from the insurance companies. You're going to have to seek it for yourself, and that's where you need to notice that any changes with your own behaviour, go straight to your doctor. Speak to the doctors about it, and then they'll probably make a referral to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. But you've got to hit it early, because the longer you start thinking, oh, no, it'll go, it doesn't go away. I often thought, no, it'll go away, I'll feel sad for a day or two. It doesn't, mate. And as I said, the trauma that I'm going through at the moment happened in 1989.
Yeah.
I thought it had gone away until it was re-triggered, and it's floored me. Mate, I'm back on heavy medications. I've been out of the job for 8 years and I'm still suffering effects from the job.
Yeah.
And it hurts. It's painful. Like I lack sleep. Yeah. And I'm dealing with insurance companies again at the moment with all the crap, which I thought was past me from the police days. But now I'm reliving it all again. It's like I've gone back 8 years in time and I'm going through the whole process again, which almost killed me then.
Yeah. I want to speak about that. Can we just, you brought a bag of medication that
you asked us,
you are currently taking today.
So, yep.
Are you able to share that with us?
Yeah, mate. Do you want me to just tip it out? Or?
Yeah, and we'll put them up on the... So how many tablets are you taking today?
Morning.
Just bring that mic in front.
Sorry, mate. Morning, I'm taking my antidepressants and the Acimax for reflux, which has been brought on from obviously stress and anxiety and all the medications I've had to take.
Yeah.
The diazepam, Valium, that's for anxiety. Same as the Seroquel. They're 300 milligram tablets. I take them for periods of extreme anxiety or at night to try and help sleep.
Yeah.
Still Knox, which I've been on for about 15 years. that's for sleep. Metrazapine, that's a nighttime antidepressant, which is also to help with sleep. The mini press, and this is the funny thing, the mini press is a high blood pressure medication. But apparently there's been studies done that taken in low dosages can help suppress nightmares.
Right.
So I take that at night. I have had no positive effect with it, suppressing nightmares and stuff like that. But when I'm in hospital, before I'm allowed to take the tablet, I have to have my blood pressure taken, because if it's too low, taking that could reduce it even further. And then obviously I'll be at a point where I could pass out or something like that, or stand up and be dizzy or something like that. Yet when you're out on your own, you take it at your own time without having your blood pressure checked. But when you're in hospital, they make such a big thing about the importance of having your blood pressure done before you even take it. Yet out in the community, it's just take it.
Yeah, so you're taking all of this every day at the moment.
It's daily, yep.
And has anyone made concerns to you about the long-term health benefits physically about this?
Yes.
And what's that?
Even my psychiatrist now with the Valiums, the amount that I'm taking at the moment, he's very concerned about the long-term effects and knows that's something that needs to be addressed shortly.
Yeah.
But he knows the stress that I'm going through at the moment, so he's monitoring that. Like, I've gone from seeing my psychiatrist once every month, even out to 6 weeks, to him ringing me once a week now, and I've got another appointment with him tomorrow morning. So it's gone from almost once every 6 weeks to now pretty much twice a week, because of the concerns he has at the moment, and in particular with the amount of Valium I am taking. Same as Stilnox. I've been told by various people that you should only be on that for 6 months, yet I've had it for 15 years. So I've got no idea what the long-term effects are going to be in terms of my liver and kidneys and my health.
Yeah.
But they're all chemicals, so it can't be good.
Yeah.
I don't like the idea of taking it. Start of the year, I went into hospital to have all that revised and changed medications, and actually came off some of those medications. But then insurance companies and lack of support from work and everything going to crap again has led me to be straight back onto it again. So you just get caught up in that vicious cycle.
Yeah. How are you feeling on all of this?
I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate taking them. Like, I have always been strong with my fitness and health and all that sort of stuff. I hate taking chemicals that are going into my body, especially not knowing what the long-term side effects are going to be. And I probably won't find that out until another 5-10 years time. I worry about am I going to have kidney problems? Am I going to all these other things? And even the nighttime ones now, because I have a fear of nightmares, I fight them. Like, I'm taking that much nighttime medication that it should be knocking me out cold, yet 2 or 3 hours later I'm still fighting it because I just don't want to go to sleep, because I'm actually scared to go to sleep. And that's pretty much been brought on because I'm now reliving that trauma, which now all the feelings and emotions that went with that trauma now come out in the form of nightmares. Mate, it's just like, I'm operating on exhaustion at the moment. Like, I'm absolutely off my feet. But you just keep plodding along, and that it's almost like on autopilot.
Do you have concerns when you're on your own taking this medication?
Definitely.
Getting it right, getting the timings right, the dosages right? Is there anyone helping you with this?
No, there isn't. When I went to hospital start of the year, we worked out that the work I was doing was predominantly Monday to Friday, 8 to 4 or 8 to 5, so it was set times. So we worked out set routine of when I take my medication in the morning, when I take my set medication at night, so I could then develop a healthy sleeping pattern. Did all the hard work, was about to come back to work.
How long were you in for? How long did that take?
That took about 5 weeks.
So that was 5 weeks at St John of God.
St John of God, started this year.
And that was to get your medication and your routines right.
It was to get, because I was having problems with sleep,
Yep.
it was to get myself into a healthy sleep pattern. Like, to get into a healthy sleep pattern, you trick the mind into knowing, well, if you have a certain thing at a certain time, okay, we're starting to get ready for bed. Like, you might have a cold shower, or you might have a cup of tea or something like that, and then the body starts thinking and the mind starts thinking, well, okay, we're getting ready for bed now.
Yeah.
And then once you develop that routine over a period of time, the you just automatically do it. And that was what we were working on. But then when I came out, work decided to say, well, no, you're not coming back to work. We're sending you for an independent medical assessment and we'll question your suitability. Did that, had no phone call, no contact while I was in hospital to see how things were progressing. Hit me like a brick in the face. And then I came back. They said, you're not going back to your current duties. We've got to we've got to redeploy you into other duties. They put me onto a position where I had to do shift work, which I went and started. I was working night shifts, so I was not taking my nighttime medications. Everything just started going all out of whack. And then I started.
And that was straight away out of hospital? Or shortly?
No, it was about a couple of months out after that.
Yeah.
Because one, they had to send me for the independent medical.
Yep.
So they put me down on special leave for that. And then when they sent me the letter to go for it, they actually addressed it to a female, not to me. Instead of Dear Mark, it was Dear Donna.
Wow.
So that's how much they care.
Just cut and paste.
That was from the injury management bloke, and from my regional commander, she sent it to someone like Dear Ann or something like that. So two people, same organisation, neither one of them could have the courtesy to even cut and paste my name into it properly.
Jeez.
So straight away, didn't really feel supported. Hadn't felt supported the whole time I was in hospital. They couldn't even do the decency of putting my name at least into it. We all cut and paste. There's no point rewriting something you've already written, but at least have the decency to change the name. And I've even got the private address of one of the people they sent it to, the female that they'd sent it to, which is, again, totally unprofessional. So many breaches they've done there. So...
And this is just you. Imagine how many times this has happened to people.
Yeah, it happened all the time. So straight away I knew there was no support. So I've been off, no support. Then I went for the independent medical assessment, came back saying that I should be moved out of the office that I was working in because that was where the trigger occurred.
Yep.
And then they tried to work out that maybe I could do a day at home or something like just eliminate a bit of, public contact and that.
Just give yourself some space?
No, there was no allowances for it whatsoever. They pretty much said, redeploy him to another unit, which was fine. I didn't mind going to another section or something like that, but they said, no, completely out of together somewhere else. So they put me into this position where it was shift work, which was against everything I'd just gone into hospital to get better at. So I did shifts. I think I had... I was on a 5-night block of night shift. Hadn't been taking any medications. By the third night, the girl that I was working with, she said, "Mate, you're a mess. You can't do this." She said, "Why don't you speak up and say you can't do night shifts?" So I went and saw my doctor. He did a letter not to do night shifts. Then I just got shoved on afternoon shifts. And again, my medications were all over the place. I wasn't taking them, like the nighttime medication, I wasn't taking to 12 o'clock at night, and then I wouldn't be going to bed until 2:30 in the morning, and then I'd have to get up, and then my daytime medications were getting later and later, and it was just... That's when I went to my doctor 12 weeks ago to say, well, this isn't working. My medications and my shifts are just not... I'm getting out of whack here. I'm starting to
in trouble.
Yeah, I'm in trouble. I need help. She sent away, she gave me a certificate for 2 weeks off while we sort this out. Insurance company, which had accepted liability to the claim, decided we're not paying him to have 2 weeks off. They then declined the claim, sent me for another independent medical assessor, and they said that the only reason I'm suffering these symptoms is because I'm unhappy about being transferred and being on shift work. And that's where I stand at the moment. I'm still employed, but on leave without pay, not getting paid, been that way for the last 8 weeks, while I wait for the insurance company and solicitors to work out where liability lies. And this whole 12 weeks that I've been off, not one phone call from management or anyone from my work, no phone call from injury management or HR. I've got no idea what's going on because unless I make the phone calls, I don't get told anything.
So your GP, your psychiatrist, supported the claim and the re-trigger and are
100%
barking at the insurance company that this is the issue?
100%.
The independent medical examiner who spent an hour with you?
Yeah, about 50 minutes, yep.
There was an initial report and they've come back and said...
There was an initial report which is I haven't seen it. My solicitor hasn't seen it. My doctor hasn't seen it. My psychiatrist hasn't seen it. But we've seen the supplementary report, which was based on one question: do you think Mark's upset about working shift work? And it came back is along the lines of it's not suitable for Mark to work shift work because of the medications and the routine of having to take his sleep and all that sort of stuff. So they've used that as the reason why to decline my claim, based on the fact that I'm unhappy about being transferred into a shift work position.
Denying the claim, even though your GP, your psychiatrist,
100%, have all supported that.
All
it is
supported
from the
that.
re-trigger.
And there's enough even in the independent medical to say that, you know, he shouldn't be working shift work.
Yep.
But they're hanging on to just refusing the claim for whatever purpose they can.
They're basing it on the fact that I'm upset that I got transferred. Yet I'd sought treatment well before that. Yeah, the insurance companies will just clutch at anything to prolong it as long as possible. And that's the thing, they'll push it until you go to, like, you'll probably get a court date, but they'll accept liability before you go in there because they don't want it told. They don't want the story to come out. But this one, I'm taking inside the court.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, they can get stuffed. It needs to be told. The emails that you've been showing me about other people having the similar problems, it's because, and I know when I went through the police one, when it's all resolved and they finally accept it and everything's done, you're exhausted at that point. They push it to the point of exhaustion, or they push it to the point of killing yourself or whatever, but they push it to the point that when it's all said and done, there's no energy left, or there's no one left to actually take it up and bring it to the awareness out, because you're just so glad that it's over with.
Yeah.
It's got to end. And I'm not going to let this one go. I can't, because like I said, 8 years, I got out of the police. I thought I'd gone through all this crap. I'm now going through this crap again. From all these emails that you're getting and messages that you're getting, it is going on everywhere. All around Australia, there's a absolute massive flaw in the system.
Yeah.
Comes back to management, the systems they've got placed in the workplace, which is absolutely non-existent, because they wouldn't want to put gag orders on people if they were happy with the systems they've got in place. There would be no need to gag people about talking about it. And the insurance companies, their delay in processing claims and declining claims based on little things just to prolong, and all they're doing is prolonging the anxiety and the hurt and the stress to a point where people give up. And that's either given up in life or given up with the claim.
Yeah. So you've been in your current workplace nearly 12 weeks off, 10 to 12 weeks
off, yep.
And not one piece of contact
Zero.
from your employer.
Zero.
That's disgusting.
Absolutely zero. I've sent through emails with my work cover certificates, not even a response to them. One of them, I think I even said, in case you are interested, here's my work cover certificate. Hoping that might elicit some sort of response. Still nothing. No phone calls whatsoever. Again, they can gag me as much as they want, but they're only gagging me from telling the truth.
Yeah.
So I go, if there's repercussions for it, then that's only because of their guilt.
Yeah, there definitely is a lack of process, procedures, support, that human connection and empathy from government departments to people who have suffered mental health injuries in the workplace.
100%, mate. And I've actually been on the phone to them in tears. I've broken down and got to the point where I've even got so frustrated, I've been yelling at them, pleading for help, just give me something, you know, and yet their response is to send the police out to my place to schedule me because I'm unstable. It's like their quick fix, and to make them sleep better at night is to know that I'm put in a bed in a bloody psych hospital being scheduled. It's fixed nothing. And even now, when I've gone up to the hospital, that's the thing, what they don't realise is every psychiatrist I've spoken to at the hospital is fully aware of what they're doing to me, and they're fully aware that every time this is all going on, and the longer it's going on, I'm reliving this trauma every single day. So they are feeding into this trauma just as much as the actual trauma itself.
Yeah.
And and that's all they've got one independent assessment. I've probably got 6 or 7 psychiatrists that could do a report highlighting exactly what's gone on. My own psychiatrist offered to give them a report. They didn't want it. Like, how often, I don't know of anyone, psychiatrist, that would be willing to provide a report without being it actually asked for to begin with.
Yeah.
They weren't interested in a report on it. Yet he's been seeing me for 15 years and they've gone off a bloke that saw me for 50 minutes. And the original report that he did, which I have no idea what it contained, but they're not allowing us to see it, so I could only assume that it's probably favourable to my claim.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, no one has got a copy of it. My solicitor, none of us have got a copy of it. So,
just so we've spoken about, is this what's happened? So you've gone for the independent medical, you've been there for an hour.
Yep.
He's done a report, then sent it back to him for rework, and he's submitted a secondary report, and then you haven't seen the first one.
No, they sent me all the documentation, and in the annexure it said would contain the original report plus the supplementary report.
Yep.
I've got the first page of the original report, which is just my details, nothing else in it. And then I've got the supplementary report, which is 1 or 2 questions asked of the doctor in regards to how he felt, what was his opinion on my thoughts of being transferred. Nothing to do with what the actual trauma or what the trigger was, which is what... And the whole thing, the stupidity of it all is the whole reason I got transferred in the first place was because I was hospitalised because of the trauma. So it's all this domino effect is because of what happened with being re-triggered with this trauma.
Yeah.
Me going into hospital changed my meds because of that trauma. Me coming back to work and stuff like that was... and then being transferred was because of them saying I couldn't work there anymore because of I got triggered through this trauma and they don't want me getting triggered again. And yet they're trying to decline liability. And then they put down that I went to hospital at the start of this year because I took my own personal leave to do it, because the year before that I was having trouble getting back to work. I was dealing with... I got cleared in May the year before to go back to work. I took it till September before I actually walked back into work because of the muck-assing around just to try and... It wasn't anything that needed to be done. They just weren't organised. And then I went a whole year on 80% of my pay, which affected me badly financially, and I just didn't want to go through the same crap again. So that's why I took my own leave at the start of the year, not wanting a bar to do with workers' comp, and it's come back and bit me in the bum, and I'm being punished for it now because they've said that they think I went to hospital for another reason. Yet fully documented that I went in there for a med change because I was still having depressive thoughts and my medications weren't working anymore because of the original trauma. So they will find any way to prolong their... And they actually accepted liability straight up. And it was only this second time that I went to take 2 weeks off that they then declined.
This second time they originally, however, accepted liability?
Yeah, my doctor rang them up and said, Mark's here, are we billing you? And they said, yeah, we're paying for his treatment sent through. And then it was only when they found out I was going to take 2 weeks off that they said, no, we're not paying for that. My psychiatrist spoke to him and said that he needs to go into hospital. They said, well, we'd pay for that. Yet, on the other hand, they turned around and sent to the police insurance an email, which I've got, and it's documented fully, that their intention was to send me to hospital for 7 days so my doctor could serve me with paperwork declining my claim, and then it was up to whether they were going to pay for me to stay any longer or they were just going to let me out of hospital with getting no treatment.
So just wanting you to be in hospitals to be served papers in a safe place.
To cover their ass in a safe place, knowing that it would be triggering to know that they've just wiped me.
Wow. And you sit here 12 weeks on with sitting here with no pay.
Zero pay coming in. I've had to put my mortgage on hold, which again, like, that's all well and good now, but the long-term effects of that, what are they going to be like in 3-6 months' time when I apply for another home loan, or if I want to sell up or something like that? How much is this going to, like, if I'm having financial hardships now, that's obviously going to affect my credit rating.
Yeah.
So it's not just the effects of now, it's what are going to be the residual effects down the track.
Yeah. Do you... sorry.
No, I was just going to say, and like just trying to, how do you pay bills? Like I've had to like you're ringing around trying to get extensions on bill payments or set up payment plans and stuff like that. I've got letters coming through the mail, which I know are bills. I've got a pile sitting on my desk at home. I can't open because I just know it's just going to be more financial stress. And I actually even got bills from the ambulance service, well, not actually from the ambulance, but from state revenue, billing me for when I was taken to hospital under schedule.
So have rang the police, sent them around for a concern for welfare.
Correct.
Police have called an ambulance.
Correct.
They've scheduled you, and New South Wales Ambulance have sent you a bill for that.
Well, state revenue has.
State revenue.
Yeah.
So it hasn't even come from him. It's come from.
I've gone
through the process, gone to state debt recovery, and then.
And so if I don't pay for that or get that sorted out, then obviously what they do, if anyone's had a debt with state recovery, they just suspend your license,
cancel your rego.
Yep.
How does this make you feel?
Again, what have I done wrong? Yeah. I feel like I'm being punished for being not well and seeking help, and I've been punished for seeking help. What does the insurance company expect when they're delaying the process for me to get better? And I'm not after a payment or a claim. All I wanted was to go to the doctors, work out how I can work out whether I can do shift work or not, how am I going to do my medications, and go back to work. And
go
now
back to work on Monday to...
Had they accepted that, I would have been back to work probably 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But each day I regress worse. I get worse and worse. Christmas and that are coming up. I can't afford anything. I'm embarrassed that I'm actually thinking of just taking off for Christmas and just, I don't know, putting up the swag somewhere and just spending Christmas alone so I don't have to face people and just be humiliated and feel the shame of, at the end of the day, I've got a job, but I'm just not getting paid because they're choosing not to support me. The organisation, that's the stupidity of it. Like, someone does something wrong in the jails, like you see all these prison guards that buddy have affairs with inmates and stuff like that, they get suspended on full pay.
Yeah.
While they investigate them for 18 months to 2 years, holiday for 2 years on full pay. All I've done is seek help for an injury, which mental health is still an injury, and I'm being punished. They can't even find it in their any sort of special leave or nothing to help me get through while they try and find me some alternate work. And that's even if they're looking for alternate work, because I'm getting no feedback to suggest they are even doing that.
Yeah. To give people some context of why being served paperwork in a facility is a trigger for you, can you share your experience of getting out of the New South Wales Police?
Yeah, well, when I found out that I was going to be served declination paperwork out at St John of God, straight away that was a trigger for me, because I was contacted while I was an inpatient of St John of God that I was going to be medically discharged from the police service. Not the best environment to be phoned by your commander and told that news. And then probably a week or two while I was still out in that facility, I was advised that they were going to come out and serve me the paperwork. And would I prefer them to come out in plain clothes or uniformed? Would that concern me in any way? That was their biggest concern.
So you've given 24 years.
Yep.
The hundreds and hundreds of exposures to death, violence, destruction, what we witness and go through, and the traumas you've been exposed to. You're inside that facility due to constant exposure and the trauma that you're suffering because of those, and the New South Wales Police decide to serve you paperwork and medically discharge you while you're in there getting help.
Correct.
Wow.
Yep. Made me feel... Well, at that point then, I hadn't even given up the possibility that I would return to work. I was in there actually undertaking the PTSD program, with the hope that it would help me get better. But once they pretty much told me that, it sort of took away for a while there any purpose to live. Like, I was thinking I was in there to get better, to try and resume my career, and then to be told that you don't have a career when you come out. It was pretty hard to take. And then to be given paperwork while you're out there and to try and, I don't know how you're meant to comprehend what's going on when you're in a mental health facility. Like, I don't even know how it would stand legally. Like, you're not of sound mind, technically. Yet they're telling you that your career's over and they're serving you the paperwork about what it all means for your career to be over and that. And then after that, a couple of weeks, I went for an independent medical assessment again for the police service and pretty much walked into the appointment and you do the initial introductions, how was your childhood and all that sort of stuff. And then he pretty much said, look, Mark, I'm not going to waste your time. I've got a few questions I've got to answer that they need answered, but I've already spoken to your treating doctors. I'm recommending discharge. You to be permanently retired. So it is a trigger that to be in an actual environment where you're seeking help, and then for people and organisations to use that as, for them, a safe place for them, that they can feel comfortable that you're not going to go do something stupid, to then serve legal documentation on you when you're in there trying to get help and better yourself. They don't see the negative impact it actually has. Like, as soon as I got that paperwork in the police service, the rest of the course was a waste of time. Yeah, I'd lost focus completely on what I needed to do. If I'd been in hospital this year thinking I was going to get help and then they just served out me and said, we're declining the claim, there would have been no point in being in hospital. And it was all purely there covering their arse that I don't go do something stupid because of their declination of the claim.
I'd be curious to know how many people out there across this country have been served papers inside a medical health facility.
Well, I think it's disgusting.
Yeah. So mental health facility.
You know, like, I just don't see how you can be given something of such magnitude and the legal ramifications from it whilst you're in an unwell state. And for them to think that's acceptable, and it's purely only acceptable on the fact that they're covering their arse. Yeah. And even my doctor, my psychiatrist said, there's no way I would have served that on you. He said, I would not have run the risk of serving you that paperwork and then declining you to stay in hospital any longer than 7 days, knowing that you would have been going out triggered highly with that knowledge that your claim has been declined. He said, that is not the purpose why I send you to hospital. And it's not, you're not sent to hospital so people can serve legal documents on you. You're sent to hospital so you can get better. Yeah. Not be given another trigger or another, stress that you've got to deal with.
And at that point, I take it you didn't feel like you were part of the family, the police family?
Nah, mate, that's pretty much when I actually went through a period where I absolutely hated the police. I even contemplated numerous times when I was walking around the streets of Penrith I was in my mind thinking of ways how I can engage in a violent confrontation with them. And that's not, well, it has been disrespectful, but I didn't mean to be disrespectful wasn't the ones that are on the front line. It was management that I was angry at, but it was that uniform that I was angry with. It was because that represented the organisation. And even now, I've told the insurance companies, stop sending the police around to cover your ass because I will start taking it out on them. Yeah. And I know there's been warnings sent out about that's how I'll react, but the insurance companies just seems that that's, for them, they just seem it's okay to waste resources, get me worked up and, to a point where I'm, in a highly agitated state and their quick fix is we'll just ring local police and waste their time to go and check up on Mark. Yeah. And then get him scheduled. But then we've done our job because we know he's in a safe place now. He's not going to do anything stupid, which will come back and hurt our company.
When this all first started, 1990, when you first sought help, 98, 99,
yeah.
Discharge from the New South Wales Police 2012.
Yep.
At any time have you felt supported, cared about by management?
No. 100% no.
That's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yep.
And again, it's why I know how difficult this is for you to sit here and talk about.
Yep.
And the emails and messages that we get, I know that this is such a huge issue across the country.
Yep.
And more people need to share these stories for change to happen.
100%.
So, if you're out there and, struggling with this and you're, a similar experience, we need to start sharing your stories, and we've got to start coming out of the shadows to effectively get change.
Yep.
Can you share with everyone what the last day you had on duty and what broke you?
Again, this is what scares me. My last day at work, I was sitting in the office. There was something going over the radio. There was a job going on, and that's what scares me to this day. Like similar to that trigger, they got brought up after 30 years of suppressing it. Just something happened. I just snapped and just said, "I'm done," and just walked out of work. I just walked out.
You were at Penrith Police Station?
I was at Penrith Police Station. Yep. I just walked out. Went and got my kids out of school, took them home, said goodbye to them, left. Found myself up at Knapsack Bridge, and was going to, I was going to jump off. And the scary thing is I can't remember. That what worries me is if I'm going to face that trigger that set me off that day again, and what it will do to me. But it was just something that was going on over the radio that I just said, I can't do this anymore. And I just walked out. Didn't tell anyone, just walked straight out. And that was my last day at work. And I got, my daughter rang my wife at the time and said, Dad just picked us up from school, drops at home, is acting weird. Something's not right.
And who intercepted you that went up at the bridge?
Mate, I was sitting up on the bridge, I had a bottle of vodka, and it was pretty much the thoughts of my kids. No one intercepted it at all. Just after a period of time, I was very emotional, and I decided to come down, and I actually went back to work and got my bag and left, and wasn't even missed. I don't think anyone even realised I'd disappeared. It was only pretty much dying the kids knew. So again, like even at work, no one noticed I'd gone. So
and never went back.
That was the last day I stepped foot. Yep. The only other time I stepped foot in the police station was when I dropped off my uniform and badge for the final time.
What was that like after giving 24 years?
The exhibit person at the time, I'd handed into the exhibit person. It was a lady by the name of Kerry Smith. And she was in the job when I first started at Blacktown, so it was sort of anyone that I would run in, that'd give it to, I suppose that was nice in that respect, that she was there when I first started, and she was there my last day. But all my uniform was just in a black garbage bag, and just handed over the badge and was given a miscellaneous property receipt. That was it.
Anything from management?
No. Nothing at all. No one from management was there to see me. As I said, I walked into I don't know if anyone knows the station, they were set up at Penrith, front counter, walked across the corner into the exhibit room, did the paperwork, and just walked back out with my miscellaneous property receipt for my uniform and badge. And that was it.
Wow.
So 24 years service, pretty much, yep, see you later, we don't give a shit. Goodbye. Next one off the production line comes in.
Yeah.
And when I first joined to when I left, changes in terms of support, no. The only thing I saw come out was a stupid bloody EAP card with a phone number on it. That was pretty much the only change. And duty officers ringing up doing a welfare check just so they could report at their monthly meetings that they've conducted the monthly welfare check on anyone that's off sick. No, everything was done purely on systems, not because they had to, or it was done because they had to, because of the systems, not because they really genuinely wanted to check on your welfare.
Yeah.
The welfare checks, every time they rung or something, I knew straight away next day would be management meeting. And I actually knew that because I was speaking to one of the admin officers there, and she would tell me that the only reason though, and I also found out there was certain individuals that were purely doing them because they were going for duty officer positions, and they needed that as part of their competencies, that they had to have a welfare check component of it.
Yeah.
So they were using those examples of conducting welfare checks in their applications and interviews.
Yeah, that's coming out. What I'm being exposed to is messages and emails about people that have been affected by senior officers using bullying and using techniques to prey on those that, you know, are suffering from PTSD as a way to climb the ladder, using as their promotion, you know, that's in their resume, their incident and how they were treated by that senior officers in their resume.
Yeah, and
it's false and misleading, uncaring.
Very uncaring. I can't see if it's part of a criteria for someone to get promoted, how's that a genuine caring service? We all know that when you're going for another position, you just look at what the job stream responsibilities are, the JSRs, and that's all you're focused on. You're not giving attention to the detail of that. You just focus on getting that JSR done.
Yeah.
So if one of that's a welfare check, you can't be fully present with the person that you're checking on and actually ensuring that they are getting what they actually need.
Yeah.
You're just there for your own purpose, not for the purpose that you're meant to be checking up on.
Yeah.
So until that system is changed, no one is going to get the correct support.
Yeah.
That's got to be separated from promotion system. And in all honesty, it shouldn't even be handled by the police. Yeah. Each police station should have a bloody psychologist working in there. Each ambulance station should have a psychologist working in there full time.
Yes.
Like the government makes that much bloody money through revenue by people going to hospital and an ambulance and stuff like that. Why can't they appoint full-time professionals to be in these areas that are exposed to these things on a daily basis and speaking to them as soon as they get back in off the streets and debriefing them?
Yeah.
There's got to be better systems in place, and it's got to be taken away from coppers that have only got it in their mind of promotion and progression because they do not have your interest at heart.
Yeah.
They don't care about you. They don't care about doing... As long as they've ticked and flicked and they can report at the management meeting they've done that and they can do a good bloody application for their jobs and all that sort of stuff, that they've done all these welfare checks, they're not genuine.
No. The amount of exposure that police, ambos, fireys have on the job, there should be a psychologist in the stations that are part of the station community.
Yep.
Someone that officers can build trust with, that can build rapport with over time.
Yep.
So when time comes where you realise, shit, I'm not coping with this.
Yep.
Something's not right. Instead of, I remember looking through phone book. I don't know where to start. I don't know where to go to. So if you knew of someone who was, you know, in that role and they were in the station, you already got a leg up to bloody go to them first.
Yep.
Which is then going to save so much angst in the future. So, and it should be mandatory that police, ambos, fireys, you know, whether it's fortnightly, monthly, you sit down and talk. Even if you don't feel like you need it, let's talk about what you've done this month.
Yep.
How does that sit? Okay, fine, that's great, thanks. But there needs to be a mandatory check-in.
100% agree, mate. There's got to be the quicker the intervention, the better chance that you can. No, it's not curable, PTSD. It's manageable. But the quicker you can start managing it, the less you've got to manage with it. Having a psychologist in the police stations, the fire stations, the ambulance stations, probably even for the nurses and the emergency personnel on emergency departments.
Yeah,
as you said, mandatory. Yet it is mandatory in all jails that the prisoners have got access to counsellors and psychologists that work in the jails on a full-time basis.
That's unbelievable, isn't it?
why can't they then do the same thing for each police station, each ambulance station, each fire station and stuff like that? Like, then the responsibility of the bullshit welfare check that these duty officers do, and that's what it is. I'll call it for what it is. It's bullshit.
Yeah.
They don't care about you. They're just ticking and flicking. There's no concern or empathy or anything that they pretend to show. We all know it's a game. You've got a psychologist in there, independent from the police service, whatever it is. They're just contracted by whatever it is. They're trained to be cared, to care for people and to help people who've got exposures, that have got mental health issues, or even, might not even be something on the job, maybe like to prevent someone working to their maximum capacity. They could be having family problems and they bring that to work. They can't perform to their maximum because there's issues on the side that's preventing them from doing that. There still needs to be someone that they can go and talk to. Like, you walk in the police station, you can't talk to anyone about that crap that you're experiencing at home, or if there's, stresses outside of work that you're worried about.
Yeah.
And yet these people are then going out with guns, looking after the public, and they've got not only the stresses of the job, but they're human and they've got their own lives as well. They've got their own day-to-day stresses that everyone has anyway. There's got to be better systems in place. Like, they've got to look at, like, coppers aren't robots that just come into work and have got no other problems going on in their lives. They are also experiencing stuff that people that have normal lives don't encounter. So they're getting normal life plus the exposure of what they get in work life, magnifying things. And they wonder why police are getting, and emergency personnel, they have outside issues, they have inside, they've got all these other issues. And at the end of the day, we're just like anyone else. It's just the job that we do.
Yeah. You made a really interesting comment, I think it was episode 2, and you said, I was in real trouble when my work life and home life merged.
Correct.
And I found that really interesting how you said that when policing goes home with you and home goes to work with you, when they merge, that's when real trouble
massive
is. The way that you put that was, I remember that being a moment of, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, my worlds collided. I had at that point then there was no escaping work.
Yeah.
Work was constantly reminded from home, and vice versa. I couldn't separate the two from that point on.
Yeah.
Yet I then went and worked for another 12 or so years, whatever it is. But
at
that point then, before you could, this is the job, I can separate that from my living. But then once the two worlds merge, it's hard to separate that.
Yeah. And I've thought about, is this the moment when then alcohol, prescription drugs,
anything,
sex, risk-taking behaviour, that starts to become really prevalent in someone's life once work and home merge.
Mate, you need some escape.
So we're going to those substances or, risk-taking behaviour to get that escape.
Yeah, well, when work and home life are separate, you can actually go home to you can actually leave work and go home to that safe place and that comfort. But when they're merged, you've got to seek it somewhere else, or you've got to seek other behaviours to distance yourself from what your world is.
Yeah. I remember myself finding that I didn't feel like I could talk to anyone at home about what was happening at work.
Yep.
And I found I couldn't speak to anyone at work what was happening at home.
It is. It's conflicted. You can't.
Yeah.
And then you get caught up in that thing where you've got to find some outlet, and that's when you do resort to those other vices. And most of the time they are not positive vices. They're self-destructive patterns.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just become self-destructive. More and more risk-taking.
Yeah.
But the same thing. Like I said, you couldn't go into work and then express an emotion about, I'm having trouble at home, blah, what do you think of that? And same thing, you couldn't go home and say, I just encountered this at work, because one, you didn't really want to talk about it, but two, you didn't want to upset your partner or people that were close to you.
Yeah, you're trying to protect them too from what
my family are only starting to find out things now. My sister and my mum have seen a couple of the podcasts and that. My son's starting to, my eldest son, he's starting to talk to me about a few of the things and that. And they know that there's been a problem, but they don't know exactly what it is.
What's their reaction been?
It's been very supportive. As I said, they've grown up with it. They've known me as a person with PTSD, and I sort of I feel cheated.
Take your time, mate.
I feel cheated in the fact that I didn't have an opportunity to have my children without PTSD. And that's all they've known their dad as, is someone with PTSD. So, and that's one thing I can never get back. And I feel cheated in that respect.
You know they love you, but...
Yeah, I got a message from my son the other day saying how much he loves me and all that. And I do know that they do love me, all three of my children.
Yeah.
But I feel guilty that I wasn't the dad that I thought I should have been to them, because I wasn't wholly present because of my mental stability with the PTSD and that. And yeah, I feel guilty for it. And no amount of counselling or support will ever make me feel any different, because it's just something it's not how I wanted to be a father. And the fact that that's how it turned out is, I guess, just how the cards were dealt, but it's just not how I envisaged being a dad. And it is hard, especially when there's milestone birthdays and stuff like that. And, you know, I've missed parts of their growing up and things like that. And because of, you know, past behaviours and things, and just, it's just something I've got to try and live with, but I can't live without the guilt. My kids are fantastic towards me, but I would love to have them to have known me without PTSD.
Yeah.
The real me, not what's left.
And the strength in you now is being there for them now.
Yeah, I have to be.
Yeah. And they're there for you.
Yeah, they have been. They wouldn't know how many times just the mere looking at their pictures has stopped me from doing something stupid. And just the mere thought of them has stopped me from doing something stupid.
This is what management of government departments and what insurance companies need to see. Because this is the human cost of just doing our job.
Yep. Again, I'm still waiting for someone to explain to me what I've done wrong, because all I feel like now is that I have a lifetime punishment. When someone can explain to me by doing my job, and this is what I get this is what I deserve for doing my job, then okay, I'll accept that. But I just need someone to explain what I've actually done wrong. So, yeah, it's hard, because as I said, that's one of the things, living with the pain and suffering that, but living with the guilt is hard.
I think we both want, as hard as what this is, that you keep reliving your experience, and you know you've been telling your story over and over and over and over again. We're doing this now to try and prevent other people going through this.
But someone's got to.
Yeah.
It's to the point now where people have spoken about this. I can't remember for how long it's been spoken about. There's been a problem with this system. There's something not right, but it never gets fixed. It's got to stop. It has to. It's wrong. The bullying from the insurance companies, the mismanagement from the departments, it's got to end. And it's got to come out in a public forum. How that happens, I don't know, but the insurance companies need to be exposed for what they're doing. understand they've got to look into claims, but the fact that they prolong, like the people that decline my claim, one of them's got a background as a bloody, what are those back crackers called?
Chiropractor.
Um,
So this is the insurance assessor.
This is insurance, the assessor.
Yeah. So the one that's doing your mental health claim
Is a chiropractor
is a chiropractor.
by background. The insurance companies, for one, should be having a separate unit dealing with PTSD of emergency personnel and defence. Well, defence have their veteran. It should be treated completely. It should be separate from everything else because it's completely different to everything else. It's not a person out there with a bad back who's trying to rort the system, and then they see him out there loading bloody 20 kilogram bags of cement and stuff like that. You know, this is an illness that can't be seen unless you walk around with a bandage on your head. People don't think there's anything wrong with you. Yet it's been handled by people that have no understanding or concept of what it is to go through with it. And so how can they actually, that's what I'm saying, it's like they push me to the point where they then up calling the police on me. It's like a game to them.
Yeah.
Because they don't understand what they're doing to me. Because they can't understand it because they've never experienced it or they don't have the necessary training for it. And that's the same with the police doing their welfare checks. They haven't got... Which one of those coppers that do a welfare check has got a degree in counselling? Which one of them is a psychologist? It's a professional area that needs to be dealt with by professionals.
Yeah.
Not some half-assed bloke or woman that's trying to foster their career and climb as high as they can up the chain of command. They've got no interest in the person they're doing the welfare check. They're only interested in getting that job application done so they can apply for the next position. It's got to be taken out of that. That system has got to change where it's not. That should not be part of a job requirement.
Yeah.
It should be. It's a problem which should be dealt with by professionals, and then that person then can make the referrals to the proper treatment services from there.
And the police that are rocking up to your door to check on your welfare, and I've been there too. You go and do concern for welfare checks, and you've got 15 other jobs to get to.
No, yeah, I'm taking up their time.
Yeah.
And I feel bad, and I've even said to them, I said, look, you don't need to be here. You know, you've got better things to do and stuff like that. And then I feel bad. I feel humiliated. It's embarrassing that ex-colleagues are coming around to my place. And the worst thing of it is too is that it becomes a station summary, or in some instances that I've had recently, it becomes a statewide significant event.
Yeah.
So everyone in the state knows about what's going on. People that I've worked with would be reading up about me, and I don't know how they feel about me. And to be honest, I don't give a rat's ass.
And all this would be avoided if there was better communication from the insurance company.
Could have been totally avoided.
Yeah.
100%. As I said, I feel embarrassed that the police have to come and as you said, I know from working in the job when you're dealing with the concern for welfare and that it takes up a lot of time and it takes up a lot of resources. It's not just a simple fact of going there and just saying, yep, everything's all good here, let's go.
Yeah.
Once they're involved in it, they're there to make sure, they have to make sure that they've got that duty of care.
Yeah.
Whereas the insurance company, they've got no duty of care at all.
No.
They make the phone call. As far as they're concerned, that's the end of it for them.
Yeah.
Whereas the police, they turn up, they've got to guarantee your safety. And it's a waste of resources that they have to.
As you said, they're probably using all of these tactics to keep pushing the deadline out of having to
100%.
accept liability or pay you.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I said, it was 2 weeks that my doctor put in for me to have time off to get this sorted. 12 weeks down the track, my conditions deteriorated, not 1,000%. Where I was 12 weeks ago to where I am now, and it's only getting worse. The longer it goes on, the worse I'm going to get.
So where are you sitting now in terms of what's next?
I don't know. I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
As I said, I don't know what's next. When you don't get any feedback from management to know that you've even got a job to go back to, when you don't hear from the insurance companies or your solicitors, like I said, they're all waiting on this independent assessment to come back, and then I've got to then my solicitors, and then we're not appealing it, we're taking it straight to the commission to have it heard ASAP.
Yeah.
So we're not even going to ask for a review of it, we're just going straight to the commission on it.
And that's because of the support from your GP, your psychiatrist,
100%.
your association, your solicitor.
Yeah, they've all said, no, we're not going to ask for a review, we're just taking it straight to the commission.
Yeah.
But having said that, that's all good for them to say we're doing this, we're doing all that. I'm the one they're all doing these things and they've all got the time, and all these things will take time and processes, but I'm on leave without pay. Like, is anyone actually thinking about what's happening with me in this whole process? The fact that, yeah, they're doing all these things, which I appreciate, but I'm not getting paid. I've got to try and live day to day.
Yeah.
Waiting for them to all, like, they've all got their pays coming in, they get to go home at night, they've done their day, they're working, which has given them some structure in their life, whereas I'm sitting at home waiting on everyone and getting worse in the process.
And you've mentioned to me too about you're the one trying to chase up everything. You're the one doing all the running around. And when you contact the insurance company, you get smart-ass comments back.
Yeah, condescending smart-ass comments back. Try and chase up for the independent report, get nowhere with it. Then your solicitor wants you to do a statement about what's been going on. So therefore you've got to go through everything again that's been triggering for you. And it's just constant. It's just, and that's where the insurance company knows this game. They know it's going to wear you down. And then at the end of it, if you're still around at the end of it, you're just going to be totally exhausted that you're just not going to take it any further. And that's where they get away with it, because then it just gets swept under the carpet. No one's the wiser.
Yeah.
And everyone else has to just suffer.
Can you share what it was like going to the independent medical examiner about 3 or 4 weeks ago?
Mate, it was crap. I knew I was anxious going there because I knew what I'd have to talk about. Again, I wasn't anxious about, like, there was nothing to hide. It was not like I had to try and make anything up. I was just, but it was the fear of having to know what I had to say.
Yeah. Because
of how much this trigger and the trauma has done to me. So I had to go through the whole experience of what happened with the trigger, what the trauma was.
Was that was the Braidwood incident?
No, it wasn't the Braidwood incident. This was a...
we'll talk about it.
Yeah, well, as I said, it's pretty still raw with me at the moment. I'm still trying to work through it, but it was another fatality, double fatality, but there was... someone actually died in my arms on this one. I wasn't actually attending and they were already deceased. The person actually died on me. But yeah, I had to relive all that again with the psychiatrist or the independent. Mate, I was a mess by the time I finished talking about it.
Again, 1 hour.
Yeah, just probably an hour, if that.
Yeah.
I was a mess by the time I spoke about it. There was no support provided by the independent afterwards. Like, he's a professional. At the end of the session, he knew I was a mess. He handed me a box of tissues and then went around packing up all his paperwork, putting it into his nice leather briefcase and shit like that, and was pretty much giving me the hint, you know, time to go. And then I walked out of there absolutely bawling my eyes out and walked out into Macquarie Street. I didn't know what to do. I had no idea what I was going to do, where I was going to go. I've never felt more alone and lost in my life, to be honest.
No one was with you?
I had no one. I had no idea where I just didn't know what to do. I ended up just wandering the streets of Sydney for about 2 hours. But I was just totally raw, like my emotions had just been completely exposed, and looking at it now, I could have done anything. I just was totally, I didn't know, I literally had no idea what to do or where to go. There was just nothing. It was all well and good that they sent me to the independent and that, but there was no offer of support going with me or anything like that.
Was there any offer of support to go with you?
Not to the IME, no.
Yeah.
And that was with the police service as well. The police association never provided someone to come with me to the independent.
Do you feel that's something that should happen?
There should be a branch there that someone can accompany, because sometimes people can't say, well, just take a family member with you. Like, people got to realise that people that are going to the IMEs may have a partner and they've got a young baby. You can't drag them into the city, or you can't drag them to go into these things. So you may not be able to take who you would normally take to these things.
Yeah.
But if the associations or the unions had someone that was a unit there, I've even set it up in different regions or something like that, 1 or 2 people that can pick or go with a person, wait with them, and then when they come out, either take them for a coffee or just help them debrief what they've just been through. But it's got to be someone who's got experience in that area, whether it be a professional or whether it's someone that's gone through the same process and knows what they're going through. But just have someone there to be able to talk to you and actually guide you to where you go to from there. Like, even just to get you home. Like, I didn't even know if I wanted to go home or not. I just didn't know where I wanted to go or what I wanted to do. Yeah, I didn't know what I had to do. Like, it was just, as I said, I just never felt alone and lost like I did. Like, I walked out of there, I was a wreck when I walked out of there. Yeah. And he didn't even, like, a simple gesture of, is there anyone you want me to ring for you to, or you meet? He didn't even check to see if I was meeting anyone. He's obviously done his questions for going to get paid. Obviously wanted to get out of there Friday afternoon, get home to his...
There's so much to unpack from our combined 32 years.
Oh, massive.
Mate, let's leave it there.
Yeah.
Like, we've got so much more to talk about and to raise awareness with this, and, so many more events to share of our own experiences. So I think that's enough for today.
Yeah.
If this story resonates with anyone, please reach out to me, Craig Gibson 75 at outlook.com. You can follow us on Instagram, Craig_Gibson 75. Follow you on Instagram?
Yeah, which will come up on your feed anyway. So they can,
I'll put it
if
on
they
there.
want to contact me, just see, I think it's at Mark_25442, something like that.
I'll put these up on the YouTube video as well. If this has raised any concerns and, you're in trouble right now, please, Lifeline is 13 11 14. Their Beyond Blue has some great resources on there for PTSD. And please, if you are feeling like you need to talk to someone, please reach out to someone, anyone, family members, friends. You'd be surprised how supportive they actually are when you are vulnerable and open with them. So I just please don't be like us and waited and ran away from problems and waited a long time to seek help and used alcohol and all sorts of things to cope with feeling the way that we did. So please just reach out and talk to someone if you can. 100%. Mate, thank you so much. I know how difficult this is. But I really appreciate you talking about it, because it is going to help other people. And I can only just say, just keep fighting, mate. And we both have so much to live for.
100%.
So I appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, mate, there's no problems, mate. To you too, mate. Appreciate everything that this is. Someone's got to start this awareness and to start the change. Things have got to change. It can't be any more clearer than that change has got to happen.
Yes.
Too many emergency personnel have taken their lives unnecessarily. When things could have been put into place to have looked after them better. That's got to stop. My next episode, we're going to dive deeper into some of these things, because we've just scratched the surface. And we want to actually talk about some strategies that have helped us. Not the bad ones. But talk about some of the good stuff that has helped us get through to the next day. Definitely.
And beyond. So thanks, mate.